According to the research firm, 91% of kids and teens between the ages of 2 and 17 play video games. A games industry analyst at the NPD Group noted that kids are becoming a more influential part of the gaming marketplace. It is important for parents and young adults like us to be aware and realize what the kids around us are actually being exposed to when they're playing these video games. Although some games might be fun and appropriate, other violent and aggressive video games are leading to aggression with young kids and teens. Throughout childhood, I have watched my siblings and peers be exposed to video games. Although I was never a big video gamer myself, I was able to understand what individuals around me were being exposed to, even within the household that I grew up in. I am credible to speak up about video games and how they can have negative effects on children and teens. Today, throughout my time with you, I will argue that video games are a dangerous threat to kids and teens for various reasons, and I will note how we can move forward with this issue. The three main points that I will discuss within my speech are: 1, why some video games are not meant to be produced and played based on the negative consequences, and 2, how video games become noted as a danger to kids and teenagers and the reason we are dealing with this now. And the last thing that I'm going to point out and speak to you about is what we can do to combat this issue that we are facing today with video games. We should be greatly concerned about the progression of video games and where this industry is headed. Video games can cause a great amount of damage to young individuals and their brain function, level of aggression, and overall physical health. When a child plays video games, their brain releases a dopamine supply. The dopamine activity helps them to feel pleasure and joy when playing video games. Over time, simple activities will seem unappealing to them, and they will not be excited to do anything but play video games since they have released so much dopamine playing them. If gaming gets out of control, then it can affect how kids feel about other activities in life that are meant to excite them. Children and teens have missed out on once-in-a-lifetime experiences because of the video games that they are playing. It has been researched and found that if males show shame or fear, then they can be seen as weak or overly sensitive. According to the gender breakdown, 54% of the gaming industry is males and 46% is females. This means that there are more people within the gaming industry that feel like anger is the only acceptable emotion that they are able to express. This makes these gaming communities toxic environments that are overly competitive, which does not usually bring out the best in some individuals. One study by Anderson and Bushman showed that young individuals who watch a lot of simulated violence can become immune to it and are more inclined to act violently. To add to this study, the American Psychological Association concluded that there is consistent correlation between violent game use and aggressive behavior. One real-life example was the violent teenagers who were involved within the Columbine and Newport shootings. These teenagers were committed of a violent crime and spent a great amount of time playing video games. Video games can harm your health and become detrimental to one's physical health. Some of the health issues include repetitive stress injuries, gamer's thumb, trigger finger, and carpal tunnel syndrome, just to name a few. One Washington parent was told from her child's pediatrician that he had developed eye and neck tics because of video games. This Washington parent was shocked to hear this, but video games can cause overstimulation of the brain, according to the Washington parent. How would you feel if this was your child, niece, nephew, or your friend's child? From the key points I just have spoke to you about, it is evident that video games can have negative effects on young children and teens that live in the world we live in today. There's information spreading about video games that is affecting how we spread the dangers about video games. Every individual has the right to their own opinion, but it is important to note that video games are dangerous to the young adults that we are raising and growing up with. Some parents and research has noted that it is normal and healthy for children to compete with their peers. One young child noted, "I like to compete with other people and win." This research study failed to note that competition can bring out a negative environment and lead to aggression within younger people. One World Education noted that video games are not negative at all, and the only video games they included within their post were Candy Crush and Madden NFL 15. It is important to note that some video games are okay in moderation, but violent and aggressive video games can be dangerous to young children. It is important for video game producers to set boundaries while they are producing. Violent video games can help to strengthen memory, perception, reasoning, and navigation, which was noted by Tom Jacobs of the Pacific Standard. Jacobs forgot to mention that violent video games can cause individuals to feel socially isolated and can cause aggression, which can be pushed off onto others. Although there are some positive benefits of video gaming, there are more negative consequences. Video games have greatly impacted children today, and it will cause more issues within the world if we do not come together as a community and have more regulation on video games. What needs to be brought to the attention of young adults and parents about video gaming for young children and teens is 1. Young adults and parents need to become more aware of the video games and which should not be played by their children. And 2 is we all need to regulate how long we allow our children to be exposed to video games, because too much gaming can lead to negative outcomes, which were noted previously. The first solution that I mentioned is that we need to promote awareness, and as parents, we must acknowledge inappropriate video games for young children. For example, parents need to pay close attention to what your child is playing and their behavior post-gaming. This will allow you to identify if it is appropriate and if they should continue playing. When it comes to regulating how much your child is gaming, I would suggest parents and those with young children to make a calendar or set a timer to make sure you ensure that you are not spending an absurd amount of time gaming for your child. What we can do today as we move forward with facing the negative consequences of video games is to ensure that we are spreading awareness about which video games should not be played for a certain age group. In addition, we can regulate how much time we are spending playing video games with an app called Rescue Time, which I'm going to show you right now. So this site allows you to identify and take note of how often you are spending online or playing video games. And it's an app on the phone. This will help to prevent negative health outcomes and improve mental functioning of young children and teens. For the last few minutes we had together today, I informed you on the negative impact that video games have on individuals who make up the world we live in today, specifically those younger children and teens. In addition, I identified how we have identified negative effects of video games and an action plan for you all to get involved with me on this issue, specifically with your children and regulating how much time they are spending playing video games. I've discussed the negative outcomes of video games, how video games become noted as a danger to kids and teenagers, and the reason we are dealing with this now, and what we can do to combat this issue that we are facing today with video games and how you can become involved with me. Even if you are not raising young children, or if you are, it is still important to identify the negative consequences of video gaming. Although video games have a large effect on young children and teens, it is important to note that this can also affect young and older adults.